Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second webinar of Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Palooza 2024. My name is Janice Paré, and I will be the host for today. I'm going to be assisted by my Recycle Smart teammates, Kathy Dudnoff and Leah Kelleher. And we want to give everyone a very warm welcome today because it's a real pleasure for us to connect with our followers this time of year. We always look forward to this time of year. We hope that you feel the same. And if this is your first time coming to one of our webinars, welcome. Please come back. And thank you for joining us today. Today's webinar is called Batteries Are Everywhere, Handle with Care. And it came about because of the uptick in battery fires, recycling and waste facilities in the past few years. Batteries seem to be in everything these days. Wherever you look, there's a battery. But because of that ubiquity, they can sometimes be easy to overlook and kind of don't pay attention to them. They seem safe. And that's mostly true, but we need to take special consideration when we handle them for disposal because there is that threat of fire and we want to make sure that everybody is safe. So today we're going to be hearing from Karen Stewart, Steward Relations Manager for Call to Recycle. She's an expert in battery stuff. And we are also going to be hearing from Bob Capadona. He's the Vice President at Casella Resource Solutions. So Karen has spent 25 years working in government affairs and compliance within the electronics and battery industry. She worked for Energizer Holdings for 11 years, overseeing their compliance and safety programs for batteries and electronic devices. In early 2022, she joined Call to Recycle as the Steward Relations Manager, overseeing the Steward program as well as government relations. She has an undergraduate degree from Indiana University of Pennsylvania and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon University. I just want to say thank you, Karen, for taking the time to speak with us today, and I will let you take it over from here.
Great, thank you, Janice. And thank you all for having me and having me present. I always enjoy presenting to different audiences on kind of the battery industry, especially as it pertains to recycling. As Janice just mentioned, I've spent most of my career in batteries, whether it's R&D, recycling, what happens at end of life. So I'm happy to share what I know and answer any questions as they come up. So I'll start off with giving you a little bit of background about Call to Recycle, if you don't know who we are. We are a nonprofit. We just celebrated 30 years in the spring of this year. So we were founded in '94, and we were essentially founded by the industry at the time to address federal extended producer responsibility, EPR legislation. More specifically, what was going on is the universal waste regs came out under the EPA. As that pertains to the battery industry, essentially you could no longer put heavy metals in landfills. If you go back to that time and you're a consumer or business and you're wanting to buy a rechargeable battery, the only chemistries that you could buy were nickel cadmium and lead acids. They inherently have heavy metals. And so the industry needed a nationwide footprint to take those batteries off the market when they reached end of life. So that's kind of where we came from, how we started. Obviously today, the lion's share, when you talk about rechargeable batteries, are lithium ion. Just for a kind of additional side note for kind of some battery history, back in the 90s at that point, alkaline batteries and a lot of the other kind of smaller single-use batteries had mercury in them. The industry removed the mercury because that was really just used so that the batteries didn't leak. But once the mercury was removed, they essentially were out of the universal waste regs and they could be disposed of in the landfill because they didn't have heavy metals. So just a little bit of history there. But we are funded primarily by battery and battery containing product manufacturers. We refer to them as our stewards. And our sole purpose is battery collections. I often get asked, are we going to go into packaging or other hard to recycle materials? We are 100% focused on batteries and the safe collection of batteries. When I talk about a program, that can be kind of vague. So this wheel kind of gives you an idea of what I mean when I say we run the program. As I mentioned, our funding starts with our manufacturers or our stewards. With that funding, we essentially run or operate the rest of this wheel. And I'll dig into parts of these in a little bit more depth later, but at a high level, a lot of the funding we do, especially in states that have battery EPR legislation, is education outreach to consumers. So one, we inform them that they need to recycle their batteries in a specific way, and then how do they do that? A lot of that is driving them to our online locator so they can find their closest collection site. We've set up over 15,000 collection sites across the US. They use our approved materials for collection. Once they're filled, they're automatically routed to the closest battery sorter. Those sorters simply sort by chemistry. Those chemistries are put into full truckloads and go off to our battery processors, which are then processed, and the materials are put back into the market. The important note I always make here is we do not own the sorters or processors. They are part of our approved network, of which we have high oversight, and I'll get into more detail there. But it generally takes 12 to 18 months for any new sorter or processor to become part of our network because again, our focus is safety. We need to ensure that they'll meet our qualifications. So as Janice mentioned, some of the challenges here is batteries are ubiquitous. They are in everything we own these days. Years ago, it was common that they were just found in something like a laptop or a cell phone. But with everybody trying to cut the cord, with people trying to move away from gas-operated outdoor power equipment, so many things are powered by lithium-ion batteries. Even down here, kind of surprising, you have cook stoves that no longer run off of propane. They run off of lithium-ion batteries. A couple weeks ago, I had a conversation with a company that is putting lithium-ion batteries in kayaks. So you can have your kayak powered by a lithium-ion battery. It never ceases to amaze me what people are putting into the market. In addition to that, they come in so many shapes and chemistries. So, as we build on this slide, there's just a plethora out there, and it's because they're very different use cases need different types of chemistries, different sizes, etc. One of the things that we promote, so we don't lobby as a nonprofit, but we do have conversations with stakeholders or legislators. We always push for all battery collections. If I were to show any of these batteries to consumers, to many of us, and ask you, is this rechargeable? Is this single use? A lot of people wouldn't know, nor really should they have a deep understanding of batteries. They just want to be able to recycle the battery that they have in their hand. And we want to be able to take the battery they have in their hand. So we often just push for all battery collections, all battery laws, so that we can take all of these that are on our screen. Moving from challenges is the awareness piece, which is often a challenge as well. So a lot of what we do, as I mentioned, is battery education. One of the first kind of core pieces that we really start to need to push as an industry, as an association or organization, is the simple fact that you have a battery in your device. So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago where Underwriters Laboratories gave a presentation on a database that they maintain. And part of this work is that they do surveys to consumers. One of the questions they asked was, do you know that there's a battery in this device? And they asked that of a few different types of devices. One of them was a cordless vacuum cleaner. Over 50% of the consumers had no idea that there was a lithium-ion battery in the cordless vacuum cleaner. So step one is just people have to realize that there is a battery inside of this device. And in those cases, most of them can be removed for recycling. Number two is that they need to recycle their batteries. You can see on the image in the middle there, that's what can happen if a battery is not disposed of properly. That is one of the trucks on fire because it was crushed or otherwise punctured and a thermal event occurred. So there's a lot of education that we do you need to recycle your battery, and this is how you do it. The last important piece is that they have how to understand what is a damaged or defective battery or a recalled battery. So what does a damaged or defective battery look like? What are you supposed to do with it? And then separately, how do you know you have a recalled battery and what do you do there? So there's a lot of education on those three pieces that we do. This is just an example of some of our fall campaigns. So many of us are digital oriented now in terms of just getting our news, getting informed on various topics. So a lot of what we do is digital campaigns, whether that be social media, as you can see here, or we do a lot of search engine optimization. So often people just start Googling, what do I do with my battery? How do I recycle my battery? So we put a lot of effort into ensuring that our like those keywords drive up to the top of our website so we can drive people to the locator. But these are some of the kind of more new and refreshed images. Again, just general awareness, getting people to notice that there's something they're supposed to do with the battery. And the one on the top is really driving them to our locator page. So that's just kind of a sampling of how we do some of our education and outreach. So turning to safety, obviously safety is what we lead with. Some of these images, unfortunately, we're used to on a weekly basis. You hear of some sort of a fire incident. Most often the culprit is a lithium ion battery. One of the other items that we always push for as a best practice is any organization that's going to collect and recycle batteries must be transparent and have oversight to ensure that they're meeting the laws and regulations for the storage, the transportation, and the processing of all batteries. The image on the left shows a truck. This is an e-waste. This was not a call to recycle. It should never be a call to recycle truck, but this was an e-waste truck, undocumented, being transported improperly. Obviously, a thermal event occurred inside of that truck. It bowed out, pushed out all of the side of the container, the back of the container. Again, this is not how you transport any kind of lithium-ion battery. The upper one is obviously somebody did not dispose of their battery properly, and the load had to be dumped in a parking lot. And then the lower image shows kind of how dramatic, and I think we've probably all seen these images, a lithium thermal event can be, especially when you get to the larger batteries. So this was a medium or large format incident that occurred in a facility. So what does call to recycle do for safety, right? As I mentioned, we focus a lot on that. We start out with collection materials where not only are you collecting, but obviously you're storing them until that collection kit is filled. So we have both these boxes, which you see on the screen, and we also have 55-gallon drums. I often get the question because people don't see the liner or know of that liner inside. Well, why are you just collecting in a cardboard box? It's not. We have these patented thermal liners. Essentially, that's like a glass silicate inside. So if a thermal event occurs, it melts and smothers the thermal event. We have a similar kind of glass silicate in our drums. So we have what we call a one drum solution, where if you're a large collection site, you have this container, this 50-gallon drum. We also provide what we call almost like a dipping dots type glass silicate, and you build what we call a battery parfait. So you actually layer the silicate with the batteries. Again, if a thermal event occurs, those glass beads will melt and put out the event. So that's how we ensure, in terms of collection and storage, we have a safe mechanism. We also require safety training for all of our sites. It's required at least once a year. If you do not fulfill that training requirement, you are removed from our program. And that we try to make it as easy as possible. It's online, it's 15 minutes. There's a quiz at the end to make sure you paid attention. The focus there is to use the materials to make sure that if you see, how do you know that you have a damaged or defective? And that's the other critical piece that we're trying to get across to all of our collection sites. And then lastly, certification. So as I mentioned, we have certifications over our network. There's your R2 and ISO certifications. And then we also have DOT special permits for all of our boxes and kits for transport. And then kind of looking a little bit deeper at kind of the mechanism that batteries go through from collection to processing. As I mentioned, we have approved sorting and downstream processors that are our partners. This lists who they are. And we just added another set in Oklahoma, Blue Whale. So this gives you an idea of kind of the partners that we work with. By default, we do everything here in the United States. You will see a few that are overseas. That is so that if there was an incident in the US and we have to keep our systems and our network processing and going, that is an outlet should something happen in the US. But by default, everything stays here in the US for sorting and processing. As I mentioned, we have over 15,000 partner collection sites throughout the US. They are a combination of retailers, public agencies, businesses, etc. I will say the vast majority of our collections come through our 4 major national retail partners: Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, and Staples. But otherwise, we get batteries from every area, and we're happy to partner with those that want to partner with us. Looking at sorting, this gives you an idea of how we have spread our sorters out across the United States. We just did add one in Oklahoma, as I mentioned. This will be something that we will continue to grow as we continue to collect more and more batteries, with the expansion likely into the Northeast and Northwest in the coming years. And then lastly, in terms of processing, this is an image. I believe this is a life cycle image. And that's the famous black gold. If you ever hear people talking about what is black gold, that's what's in those gaylords up there. All of our processors do it slightly differently, but generally the batteries are unpackaged. When you talk about rechargeable, they are discharged in some way and then shredded. That shredded material is then processed through either a pyro or hydrometallurgical process. So that's either heat or liquid-based process. It creates that black mass that you're seeing in the image there. That black mass is then further refined to get minerals or metals out. When you're talking about lithium ion, the gold there is really the cobalt and the nickel. When you're talking about something like an alkaline, it's really get the steel can back out. So that's kind of an overview of our processing system. And I think that is it. So I will hand it back over to Janice.
Thank you, Karen, very much. Bob Capadona served as a vice president of Casella Resource Solution Team at Casella, where he is responsible for the oversight of Casella's recycling, organics, and professional services operations, which include commodity marketing, operations and technology, and equipment for capturing new material and improving the quality of materials recovered. Bob has over 25 years of experience in the waste and recycling industry, spending 25 years with Casella in various roles, including oversight of Casella's 25 recycling facilities. Bob leads, a team of professionals who process and market over 1.5 million tons of recyclables and organic materials each year, and is key to the implementation of Casella's long-term resource solution strategy. He received a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Management from the University of Massachusetts at Lowell. Thanks, Bob, for coming. And just so you guys know, so when we talk about materials recovery facilities, Recycle Smart often goes to the MRF to say, hey guys, will you take this? Is this possible? And Bob used to be one of the guys that would tell me, but he's moved up in the world. But anyway, so we owe him a debt of gratitude for always being game to answer those questions for us. So thanks, Bob, and welcome.
Thanks, Janice. Are you picking up my screen? Everybody, you see that? I haven't moved too far. I'm in Boston. I am in Boston today, so I do travel a lot for Casella. But thanks for having me. I think this is a really, really important topic, especially where it comes from when it comes to the material recovery facilities, or as MRFs as we call them. Quick presentation, 10 slides here, some really good pictures of some of the impacts that lithium batteries have at our MRFs. But a little promo here of who we are. I am trying to get my screen. There you go. Little folklore, right? We started 1975, Casella. Again, I've been with Casella 25 years. Started by 2 brothers, John and Doug Casella, and we are now closer to 5,000 employees. We are a publicly traded company. pretty close to over 1,200 vehicles. And, just the traditional recycling tons were over 1.5, actually 1 million of tons marketed, processed, and marketed. Today, John is still our CEO 50 years later, and Doug is very active in the in our facilities. Footprint, again, it's Northeast. We have just expanded into Pennsylvania and Maryland. Lots of dots there, but any of the blue dots that you see are our recycling facilities, which is over 20 facilities. In Massachusetts, which is primarily our audience here, we operate 3 facilities in Massachusetts. 2 of them are single stream residential processing facilities. I'm here at the Boston facility, the Boston MRF. It is the 4th largest in the country, processing almost 200,000 tons of materials a year. Our Auburn, Mass facility is close to 100,000 tons per year. And we recently acquired a high-grade paper facility in Springfield, Massachusetts. But our primarily residential processing and some commercial processing is the Boston and Auburn MRFs. And when we think about MRFs here, this slide here kind of shows the pressure sandwich here of a recycling facility. You have the inbound side that comes into the facility, that comes off the curb. Typically could be anywhere from 5 to 15% of contamination comes to our facility, and then you have the outbound pressure of producing a quality that's less than 1.5% prohibitives or contamination. So as a manufacturing facility, you have inbound material at least 50% shouldn't be in there. And that includes lithium batteries. And then the outbound pressure of facility of producing a 1.5 and less contamination in our bales. And our typical contamination, you see it there. It's plastic bags. You got tanglers. You have clothes, food waste, scrap metal. Although it's recyclable, you don't want to see it in that traditional residential stream because it does damage equipment. And the same with the construction and demolition. But again, typical contamination, again, anywhere from 5 to 15%, depending on a community. And these particular items could damage a machine, or they could impact the quality at the end of our finished products. But then you have this. You have lithium batteries that obviously are becoming more and more evident within the stream. Karen did a nice job with regards to those pictures, kind of the same picture, except, I kind of took a picture here of, you see a typical, handgun battery, lithium battery, and then you see the picture next to it. That is what we pulled out of this after it created some type of small smoldering fire. Same thing with the small blue batteries. You can see in the hand there, that's what it looks like after it's been smoldered. And the same thing with regards to the little lithium battery to the right there, what it looks like after it has gained some heat there. So, it really inside the pile or any kind of, plastic pile, fiber pile, on the tip floor, the single stream pile, if a battery gets in there, it definitely creates some heat. And then you have some type of fire or explosion that could occur. So just some stats, within the last, this is just the Casella facilities itself. Again, over 20 facilities. We've had the last 3 years, 24 fires just from lithium batteries that we have identified. And then there are 47 fires that we don't know. This is the last 3 years. Could be a lithium battery, maybe not. Just very difficult to find out the generation of the fire. And these pictures here are very recent pictures that you'll see upcoming here. This fire here was in the what we call a metering bin at one of our MRFs, and the metering bin is the beginning of the process. We throw, we tip a pile of single stream that holds about 5 tons there, and you can see the very beginning of it, flames coming out of it. And these are just common events. I mean, when Janet started this, batteries are everywhere. Well, when it comes to a MRF, they end up everywhere. They could be anywhere, right? They could be on a tip floor. They could end up in a paper bunker. These are actual documented events that have happened. Anything that, especially from a safety standpoint, we definitely document it all because we want to be able to improve the safety concerns at a MRF. So could be in a glass bunker. Most of it is definitely, you see it on a tip floor. It comes in some container. Obviously, it starts at the curbside level or even from a commercial level, ends up in a bin, ends up in a truck, then it's tipped on a tip floor. And, some of the safeguards that we have, I mean, it's very, very difficult to obviously, when you have 100 ton, 200 ton, 1,000 tons on a tip floor to find a little battery. Some of the things that we do, we keep kits in every one of our facilities, comes with a fire blanket, gloves, and safety. On the far right here, you see the cameras. These are cameras that every one of our facilities have, and they run around and they identify on the tip floor cameras infrared if there's any heat within a pile. Now, it only goes so far within the pile, but at least it's somewhere that you can combat it. And we have had events where we've identified it, and if it heats, we pull it back with a loader, and we may find a lithium battery. In the middle here is very popular, fire over. We have these at several facilities. We had an event back in July, and really what this does, this monitors your tip floor. And again, it's heat sensor. And if there's a smoldering fire that starts, it will automatically, an operator on the monitor will spray the gun virtually and create and knock down the fire. I will tell you, back in July, we had an event exactly like that. And within 45 seconds, identified smoldering, and there was a flame. And within 6 minutes, that flame was put out. This is almost a must. Again, lithium batteries are not going away. This type of protection is almost a must at all of our facilities. And this last one here, right? This is an event, a live event here. It's a short video. It's only 20 seconds long for obvious reasons, because happened a couple of months ago, and this is ending up at nighttime here. Facility's not running. Our facility manager does live close by, and like any dedicated manager, was just happened to be checking on his site and driving through. A fire happened in the residential compactor, but you think about something like this within 20 seconds, just the visual of the video itself kind of gives you an idea of the impact here. See it coming out of the back of that's a residual can. He's running now into the facility, and that is what it looks like inside the facility. I can tell you, if he was not there and driving by, there would have been significant damage here. We may have lost that facility. So I'll end with that, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I love it. I think I really appreciate the real world images and the video, because we talk about what can and cannot be recycled all the time. And one of the big reasons why something should not go in there is risk of injury to the workers. And so that, brave manager of yours to go in there and turn on the rover or whatever. But there's people that work there, and we want to keep them safe. And it's really important that we are, conscientious or, thoughtful about what we put in there. So thank you for that. And Karen, thank you. we have some questions. I'm not sure if we can answer all of them, but Kat, if you wanna go through some of them, and we'll see what Karen and Bob can come up with. Put you guys on the spot.
So specific to Bob's, just because these two just came in, but how did they extinguish that fire that you just showed? And Bob, you're muted.
That was done in a combination of water and fire extinguisher. You could see there was no flames there and it was smoldering. So thank God. You know, our facility managers and our employees, they're trained. Listen, if it's smoldering, give it a shot, but it's a safety first. Like Janice said, you know, it's one thing to have contamination and, you know, strings and plastic bags, but lithium batteries, you want everybody to go home safe. So if these guys are trained that, listen, if it gets out of hand, they're already calling the fire department at that point, and just get out of the building.
And another question to that was, are there smoke and fire alarms in the facility? Like, would that have been caught had your worker not been in the area? Or how long would it maybe?
100%. Yes, there's both fire alarms, sprinkler systems, every one of those facilities. That's mandatory just for insurance purposes.
Thank you. So I'm going to scroll back up to some of the questions from earlier. And let's see. How are lithium ion batteries classified for DOT requirements? Do we know?
So there's two. This is where I get a little fuzzy on because I'm not our operations side, but there's one set of class. They're actually a class 9 when they're going out. So if they're new, fresh, going out to consumers, they're class 9, and then there are certain exemptions you can have for the smaller batteries. When they're coming back, they are still regulated, but I am not the expert on how they are classified under US DOT regs.
Thank you, Karen. Are alkaline batteries actually recycled, or is it futile to bring them to a collection center?
No, so if anything comes into our boxes, we recycle them, whether we're funded or not. So that's the critical piece is in the majority of states, so with the exception of Vermont and Washington, D.C., we are unfunded if we get alkaline batteries. So we will process them, we will take on that cost. They absolutely are recycled. The primary thing there we're getting out is the steel to go back into industry. But we are unfunded. So if we get a lot of alkaline batteries, that is a big drain for a nonprofit to bear.
Are there call to recycle programs for collecting electric bike and vehicle batteries?
Yes, yes and no. There is for e-bikes. So we have a national voluntary program for e-bikes. We have, I think it's over 2,000 collection sites throughout the United States. But because it is voluntary, they only take the brands that support the program. So if the brand is in the program, we'll absolutely take it back. We recycle it. We have a network. If they are not part of it, then you have to contact that manufacturer to determine how they want you to recycle their battery. For EVs, this is a newer, this is all kind of newer. There is no official network in place. Call to Recycle does have software. We're partnering with a number of OEMs in the EV space where we help them manage their EV batteries to what they would call cancel them in California terms. So we help them transport the battery from where it was removed from the car to a final processor to ensure that it was canceled and recycled properly.
What, if any, solutions are there for vapes with embedded lithium batteries?
So I can start on that one. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of any. I believe PSI, the Product Stewardship Institute, is working with various states to try to come up with some sort of a solution. I don't know if it's a model bill or what have you, but I'm not aware of any solution right now except for I think Colorado is doing like a pilot to test out some options. But other than that, I'm not aware of a solution.
And Bob, are you seeing a lot of vapes coming in with those embedded batteries?
We see it all. It's interesting. the smaller the battery, the worse it is, right? For obvious reasons, because we can't see it coming up the main outfeed. We have pre-sort at every one of our facilities to try to identify any contamination. But you think about when you're processing 20 tons an hour at a normal MRF, very difficult to see a small battery, and it might run through the whole system before it even identified.
That's rough.
Just on that, though, I wanted to point out that Mass Recycle, I believe, did a podcast on vape. So if you guys are Mass Recycle, you know what that is. They have a podcast they put up periodically. Anyway, I'm pretty sure they did have a podcast on dealing with vapes. And my takeaway from it was that they are extraordinarily complicated. So I wish I had a better, oh, Leah just put it in. There's a link in the chat. I wish there was a better, I think an easy way to deal with them, but there isn't.
Okie dokie. Do either of you have guides for identifying battery types? Maybe if you do, you can put a link in the chat. I think that would be helpful when thinking about where to take these items or what specifically to take to one of the collection locations that Call to Recycle even has.
We do. I will put a link in the chat. We do have some guides. I will say we are in the process of, a lot of our historical information is aimed at technical collection sites. And so we're working to try to streamline that and make that more consumer friendly. But I can link what we do have.
Thank you. Janice, if you could help me comb through the chat because I'm trying to see what I missed.
Yeah, you know, I was gonna say, we also have an identification guide on Recycle Smart in the Recyclopedia. If you just search for batteries in the Recyclopedia, we have a lot of different kinds, but within each one of those, there is another link that goes to an identification guide. I don't know where you are, but I can address Rob's comment. In view of the increased ease for consumers, is there any thought within Massachusetts to expanding battery recycling requirements to include single use? If you're meaning a waste ban, I haven't heard of anything going in that direction. If you're thinking about EPR, I definitely think there's a lot of people working on EPR for batteries. I don't know, like, that it includes all batteries, like in some places they do fund alkaline and some places they don't, but we definitely have, you know, movement in that direction with people working on EPR. Where are you, Kat?
Everywhere. I'm gonna read through, like, okay, we got that one,
Okay.
Janice and Kat, I saw a question on transfer stations, and very much similar to the guidelines here, very much similar to a MRF, right? And it's just as dangerous also. A lot of our transfer station, MSW, as you imagine, Casella has many different transfer stations throughout the Northeast and Massachusetts. So we see the same amount of batteries coming through there. And yes, the smaller makes it even worse. They're just as powerful.
Being too small, are there other reasons why alkaline batteries are not accepted for recycling?
Well, I mean, it's other than, and let me clarify in the transfer station side. A transfer station, I'm including, kind of defining an MSW transfer station that would transfer MSW out to a landfill or incinerator or whatnot. Obviously there's transfer stations that have source separated materials of clean cardboard, you know, clean plastics and things of that sort. So obviously you will not see less of a chance that you would see source separated batteries and source separated material, because folks are doing a really good job at the residential area with regards to you know, batteries within the stream. But any kind of alkaline or any kind of battery with regards, as far as we're concerned, is dangerous coming within the MRF, because not only going through the system, but also from a baling standpoint, you have compaction of material and whatnot, and that is very, very dangerous with regards to explosions within the baler itself. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, Janice, but that's what I was referring to.
I hope so. Yeah, and thank you for making the distinction between transfer stations, because I was thinking of a drop-off transfer as a.
Right.
Yeah, the
Right.
bigger transfer station. Where are you, Kat? There were a lot. I have like 12 new messages. That's why I was talking about that other one.
I'm trying to catch up too.
Mass Product Stewardship Council proposed battery EPR bill coming up in January does include all batteries under 20 pounds except medical devices. That's great. And if you are interested in advocating for EPR, extended producer responsibility stuff, I would highly recommend getting involved with PSI, because they're one of the big operators that are pushing for that kind of stuff here in Massachusetts. MassDEP does not take a stand on that. Anything else?
I think maybe I missed this, but Karen, you might have already answered this, but does Call to Recycle accept products with embedded batteries? Did we
No,
do
we do not. We are only focused on loose or replacement batteries.
Thank you.
Is there, Karen, you might have mentioned this, but I just maybe reiterate, is there like a way that they should be put in the box?
The batteries?
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's the terminal protection piece. So by that I mean there are certain chemistries that need to have their terminals protected via tape or place it in a bag. So we do have some guidance on that, but generally if you see the word lithium on your battery, protect the terminal. Or if if it's rechargeable, if it's something that comes out of a power tool or kind of those unique formats, it's not your AA, AAA, protect the terminal, put it in a bag, tape it. Thankfully, we are really trying to move as quickly as we can to this, what I call the one drum solution, that 55-gallon drum with a battery parfait. That does not require terminal protection under US DOT reg. So as we start to transition a lot of our collections over to that, we will be able to start moving away from terminal protection, because again, that gets confusing to consumers, it gets confusing to retailers. The easier we can make this for everybody, the more likely that everybody's going to start recycling their batteries.
Another question I have, Karen, is I think that and Bob, you might know this too. I think there's been movement to try to like get a national campaign for battery safety going. I'm wondering, in the states that do support Call to Recycle, that you guys have the EPR stuff in, are there broader campaigns to educate people about how to handle them properly?
Yeah, so there is an EPA ongoing work. They have a kind of a assignment, if you want to call it that, from Congress to do battery labeling, battery safety, all that kind of stuff. So they've been doing that since last year. They're supposed to publish best practices, but that's all they will be. They can't change law. From a Call to Recycle's perspective, when we do have state battery EPR, our focus is more on awareness and to take action versus kind of maybe scaring somebody. We have chosen to really try to push being proactive and being, a steward of the environment and make it as easy as possible. That's really kind of our theme that we're trying to make it is, as you're doing your errands, drop your batteries off. And that's been a kind of our mantra for a while now.
That's a good one. Bob, do you know if I don't know what your trade group is for MRFs, but is there a campaign for not putting batteries in the recycling, a national campaign on the horizon?
I know it's state by state, Janice, and you see the EPR popping up in several different states. And of course, Casella would support that. The best way that we find that we can get the word out is honestly by social media. We do a lot of social media around not only contamination, but there's just a different level with lithium batteries, as you can see by some of the pictures. So it's definitely case by case in the state by state.
And one of the requirements for Call to Recycle under some of these state laws is that we have to measure how effective our education outreach is. So we do every year, we do a consumer survey for residents, and like Vermont is one of them. And the feedback we get is, so we ask a lot of questions, not just the minimum. And we always ask, where do you want to learn how to treat your batteries? And they say, our waste haulers. So we partner with Casella in that state to push the message out, because they see Casella in that state as the expert to tell them what to do with their waste. So we've learned to partner as best we can with the experts, or at least those that are seen as the experts and where consumers want to get their information. And so it's been a good partnership with Casella.
Hey, Bob, you want a partner?
It's it's good to hear. It's good. But you know, that's so funny because the typical residents always turns to their waste hauler, right?
Mhm.
That's who they see every day, once a week, and they're the ones that provide the education, not only from lithium battery, but what the acceptable list looks like and things of that sort. So I'm glad that it's successful there in Vermont, and would love to partner. Yes, Janice.
Thank you so much, Karen and Bob, for joining us. Thanks, Kat, for your co-piloting, and I will call it at that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.